This video is part of a larger series wherein I will be watching every movie produced by Studio Ghibli. If you haven't already, I suggest you watch episode 1 first as it contains important information about this series. And today I watched Kurenai no Buta, or Porco Rosso, made in 1992, and spoiler warning. It finally happened, guys, a Studio Ghibli movie that I don't like. Sound the alarms. I really don't know where to start with this one, so I guess I should talk about the positives of this movie first. The visuals were fantastic, as I've come to expect from Ghibli at this point. It kind of feels like each new movie is picking up where the last one left off in a way. I don't mean to say that each movie looks significantly better than the last by this though. What I mean is that each movie seems to be trying to include some sort of visual element that had not been in any previous Ghibli films. In Porco Rosso's case, most of the other Ghibli movies didn't include much mechanical animation, and look at that, this movie has tons of plain animation, which all looks fantastic. Outside of that, I have pretty similar things to say about this movie's visuals as I did Kiki's Delivery Service, in that pretty much any aspect of Porco's visuals presentation is stellar. Personally, I prefer the aesthetic of Kiki better, and I think that in Porco there weren't as many instances of really great character animation as a result of them sitting in planes for many of the dramatic moments, but like I said, the plane animations are gorgeous, so I wouldn't fault the movie for making this trade-off. Another positive was that I found Fio very likable and charming, as I did for pretty much every other character from the warehouse that Porco visits in order to get his plane fixed. What else? The voice acting was great. I didn't feel like there were any performances that stood out amidst Ghibli's other movies, but if I had to pick a favorite, I think I'd have to say Porco himself, if only for his laugh. But I think that does it, so what do I dislike about this movie? Well, first of all, I find Curtis, the, I guess, antagonist, to be completely uncompelling. Oh, and I want to preface this by saying that I may have missed some stuff in this movie and that actually the stuff I'm complaining about might have been explained, but if that's the case, I didn't pick up on it, likely because I found the dialogue bizarrely hard to follow. Like, oftentimes characters would just use vocabulary I wasn't familiar with, or like word their sentences in a way that I didn't expect. Maybe this was the fault of the sub I watched, but I still think it's a valid complaint. Anyway, Curtis is uncompelling. So Curtis and Porco meet up at the bar and they seem to be on nice terms with each other, but then later Curtis tries to kill Porco, seemingly just so that he can call himself the best pilot in the world or something. I found this to be a really big leap in logic, but I guess he was shown to be in cooperation with the pirates, so like he's just an immoral guy in general. I don't find this to be all that interesting, but I suppose it is functional. In the same vein, he also wants to get with that Gina girl and become a Hollywood star, which also is functional and relatively uninteresting in the way that the movie presents it, but his attraction towards Gina felt undercut from the fact that he also becomes in love with Fio and like tries to get her to marry him. Again, I get that he's effectively a pirate and pirates be immoral and selfish and all that, but like we understand why this is uncompelling. It lacks depth. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, antagonists have never really been Studio Ghibli's forte from what I've seen of them so far. My biggest criticism of Castle in the Sky was its villain, see part 1 of the series for elaboration, and also the other Ghibli films up until Porco didn't even have a central antagonist whatsoever. As you'll remember, I thought all those movies were good, whereas here, I definitely feel like Curtis could have been handled a lot better. I'd also like to address a counter-argument I see to this point, which is that Curtis isn't meant to be compelling, he's meant to be funny, and the extension of that argument being that the whole movie isn't meant to be taken all that seriously. Now, I totally understand this viewpoint, and I'll definitely admit that because I was watching these movies relatively back to back, I may have gone into Porco with a different expectation than the promotional material may have garnered from its audience upon release. But I don't think my stance is all that unreasonable because there's so many mixed signals in this film. The movie starts out with this typewriter effect saying like, "This is the great tale of a pig who did the impossible," or something along those lines, obviously setting the stage for a sort of grand hero's journey / adventure type story. And then at several points throughout, Porco reminisces about his past where literally he fought in a war and like his best friends all died. This is not played for jokes, it's obviously supposed to be serious and get the audience invested in Porco. But it's almost impossible to do so for me when stuff happens like the big climactic conflict between him and Curtis, turning into them throwing random stuff they have on their planes at each other just because their guns got jammed. And then the whole scene became like a boxing match joke. It also doesn't help that wacky music is playing throughout the entire scene. Actually, the same can be said for pretty much every other plane fight or dog fight in the movie, and while it works fine at first, the longer the film goes on and the more we learn about the characters, the more disappointing it becomes that the conflicts don't feel climactic. And like, Curtis becomes a movie star. He has a happy ending, and Theo seems happy for him. Did they just completely forgot that he literally tried to kill Porco? What? Going back to the thing about this movie not feeling climactic, one of the biggest reasons this was the case for me was that it seemed like every hurdle presented to Porco was just a mild annoyance to him. He's just about to go on vacation before Curtis tries to kill him, and then when his plane gets messed up, he's just like, ugh, this sucks, now I gotta go fix my plane before I can go on vacation. The only reason any of the plot happens past this point is because Theo just decides to go with him and make sure the plane is okay. Like, I get it, she wants to make sure that her first job was done right, but come on, the government is literally trying to chase down this guy, and neither Theo nor any of the other adults that helped make the plane think that maybe she shouldn't put her life in danger for no good reason. And by the way, no, I don't count the government as being one of the driving forces for the plot in this movie, because it's made clear to the viewer time and time again that Porco can relatively easily avoid them. And they do pretty much nothing outside of the one scene where they're stalking Porco for reasons I completely forgot. Honestly, all of the opposing factors to Porco in this movie just kind of feel like a joke. I already went over Curtis and the government guy, but the pirates were especially disappointing because they started off fine, but then we get the scene where Theo pushes them all around with nothing but her words. They're all gonna tear down Porco's plane and kill him, and then she's all like, where's your honor? You guys should fight fair. And they're all just completely convinced by this. First of all, they are pirates. Why on earth would appealing to a pirate's sense of morality and fairness be the strategy that worked in this situation? Second of all, I don't know when the whole little girl pushing around a big group of men by shutting down their animalistic aggression with cold hard logic under the safety of knowing that they won't hit a girl got started, but from basically every show or movie I've seen it applied in, it's always played for jokes. But Porco Rosso uses this as the catalyst for setting up its narrative climax. Not good writing. Also, I hate the name Porco. I hate saying it. I hate hearing it. Okay, I know I've been ranting about this movie for a while now, and I'm gonna rant some more. Why is Porco a pig? Can someone actually explain this to me? It has zero story ramifications. Other characters point out the fact that he's a pig. He wasn't always a pig, and apparently some sort of spell was put onto him that made him a pig. But why? Porco is the only character that we actually get shown some part of his backstory, and it only raises more questions than it answers. What seems to be implied is that Porco, like, died or almost died in a dogfight between him and some friends and whoever they were fighting against in the war, and Porco is still completely human at that time, and then we cut back to the present where he is a pig. So logic would tell you that whatever divine intervention saved him from death is also what turned him into a pig, but like, why? Not dying seems to indicate that whatever saved his life liked him, so why would it save him and then turn him into a pig? And furthermore, being a pig changes literally nothing about Porco outside of aesthetics. Was this supposed to be some sort of punishment? If so, why, and why a pig? Was it supposed to be a reward? If so, why, and why a pig? It seems to be implied that he turned back into a human at the end of the movie, but again, why? What caused him to turn back into a human, assuming that's what happened? This is all honestly baffling and kinda hilarious in a sort of who even thought of this type way. Just why? Why a pig? Why a pig? Like, was it just for fun? Because they thought it would make the movie funnier? It sure didn't for me. I find his pig design very unsettling, and again, it has no tangible effect on the narrative. It doesn't justify him being a pig at all. Why? Why a pig? I'm going on a downward spiral. Okay, that's all I have to say about this movie. It is definitely Ghibli's worst movie so far. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. And just so you know, that isn't the worst score in the world for me. Generally, stuff that I put below 3 either had absolutely nothing of value or actively insulted my intelligence to watch. Neither of these things are true about Porco Rosso. It had some positive elements, as I discussed, but I feel like the majority of the film just fails at what it's trying to do. Watch my video about how I rate shows for more elaboration. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this installment of watching every Ghibli movie. I'd love to know what you thought about Porco Rosso down in the comments, but before you do, again, I just want to clarify that everything in this series is not me trying to be analytical or convince you of why these movies are bad or good. They are simply my immediate impressions after having watched these films for the first time. Anyway, in the next part, I'm going to be watching Ume ga Kikoeru, or The Ocean Waves. And if you want to see when that that video will come out, you can check the description to find a schedule of when several of the episodes of this series are being released. With that said, have a wonderful day, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.